Well, good morning, Virginia. Congratulations on making it to the top 10. I'm Fred Ansell. I'm a lawyer with the Justice Department. I'm a former Virginia resident and a former staffer here in the Senate. I used to work in this building for many years.
I'm Rick Hardy, one of the Hardy Boys. I'm professor and chair of the Political Science Department at Western Illinois University, and I've been involved in the program since 1987.
Hello, my name is Candida Steele, and I'm a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals. I hear government contract disputes all across the country. I'm very glad to be here.
We are Maggie L. Walker's Unit 4 from Richmond, Virginia. I'm Benjamin Kenzer.
I'm Meredith Bearden.
I'm Delia Gray.
And I'm Emily Chu.
And this is our coach, Mr. Matt McGuire.
Thank you. Today's question in Unit 4 is number 3. Congress is the only national legislature in the world whose members are elected both separately from the executive branch and entirely from single-member districts. What are the benefits or advantages of this arrangement? What might be the advantages of mingling executive and legislative powers, such as the British parliamentary system? The disadvantages? Why has the creation of congressional districts been controversial throughout American history?
By creating a separate legislature with single-member districts, the founders unintentionally shaped our political parties and therefore helped to frame debate, politics, and the nature of representation for the country. America's form of government with its two-party system created a distinctive set of circumstances in which the country developed to be markedly different from the government of Great Britain. The British and American systems have characteristics that can be seen as both benefits and drawbacks. For example, the autonomous president in America can be an effective prompt for swift and efficient government, but it can also lead to less accountability. America's system is less responsive to the public due to staggered elections and set term lengths. Had Lincoln been in office with a parliamentary system during the Civil War, he might not have retained his position. If Nixon had been a prime minister, he would have quickly been ousted, minimizing the impact of the Watergate scandal. In the American system, the president's role as a trustee is further cemented because the people vote for an individual rather than a policy platform as with the prime minister.
The British mingling of the executive and legislature also has benefits and drawbacks. Britain's system has far more accountability, as only one party and one group can be blamed for problems in government. Furthermore, efficiency is promoted over minority rights. For example, Clement Attlee was able to design a welfare state in 6 short years. Such efficiency comes with the cost of strict party voting and the inability for the minority to gain real leadership experience. In many ways, the British and American systems are converging. Unlike senators who are more independent, many members of the House feel obligated to follow party lines. American government also resembles Britain's system because most deliberation occurs within the majority party, which is able to push forth its agenda without significant input from the minority. This development in America is most often seen in times of unified government. Additionally, increased media focus on the Prime Minister has caused a shift from cabinet government to prime ministerial government, acting more like a presidential system.
Neither single-member districts nor separated legislative and executive branches ensure a stable two-party system. Canada uses single-member districts, but regularly has need for minority or coalition governments. Conversely, Mexico has a presidential system, but 3 parties. It is a combination of SMDs and presidential governance that creates a distinct two-party system. SMDs set the basis for 2 parties, encouraging tactical voting. But it is a national presidential election, a contest that naturally encourages majority ideological coalitions that institutionalizes the American party system. Furthermore, the nature of political parties in America has caused the development of gerrymandering, leading to controversy with voting districts. There are 3 ways by which a state government performs districting, either through a partisan bill, a commission of both parties, or as in Iowa, a nonpartisan committee. Problems occur when seated politicians have the power to delineate their own constituencies. Historically, districting has been controversial due to racial gerrymandering and the violation of the integrity of jurisdictional borders. However, today's controversy arises in the creation of non-competitive seats. This development is inevitable due to the institutionalization of 2 major parties, political and geographical self-segregation, and the majority-minority mandate of the Voting Rights Act. Although the Iowa system is seen as a model for districting, it is by no means a silver bullet, because Iowa itself is comparatively homogeneous. It would be impossible to gerrymander left-leaning seats in Utah or conservative-leaning seats around New York City.
Today, many critics point to the decline of deliberation and the rise of partisanship as proof that the Congress in America is a broken system. Gerrymandering in particular has played center stage as a culprit for this development. In truth, it was an SMD and presidential system that set the basis for partisan government. Gerrymandering was just a side effect. Developments in both the House of Representatives and the House of Commons show how legislatures are naturally partisan, controversial, and dynamic. Madison once predicted an environment of shifting factions in America. The rise instead of institutionalized parties has thus set the government on a different track than ever expected by the Founding Fathers. Thank you, and we are now ready for your questions.
After the Bay of Pigs fiasco, President Kennedy called in the director of the CIA, and he said to him, if we had a parliamentary system, I would have to resign. But we have a presidential system, so you're going to have to resign. What do you think is the reason that the systems work differently that way, and which do you think is the better approach and why?
I would say in regards to national security issues, often the American system, where a president is institutionalized with term length, is more effective. We can see, for example, during certain periods of time, for example, during the Dutch making a treaty with Indonesians, the Dutch government collapsed twice in the 1960s, forcing the treaties to be reevaluated multiple times. And we see this throughout history. Often, a regime might be powerful in the parliamentary system, but it can decline and collapse, which can confuse foreign affairs policy.
And I think for our system, a presidential system is better. The president can act as a trustee, and I think an example of this would be with the Iraq War. Of course, we would have to wait a few decades to have enough hindsight to see if what President Bush did was good for national security. But if we had a prime minister and public support for the war was really low, I think President Bush would have been kicked out of office.
By having our presidential system, we create more institutional memory and therefore more consistent government in both the executive and legislative branches, which is more conducive to our political culture.
When you talk about institutional memory, it brings to mind members who are reelected over and over and over again. My Democratic congressman voted against the health care bill, perhaps because he feared not being reelected. What do you think of voting based on such self-interest?
Well, I'd first point out that such self-interest is just as evident in the British system. Because of the fear of the despotism of the electorate and a vote of confidence, although we do see some crossover here, there's even more reluctance in the British system. One might argue that the healthcare bill might have not have even come up in the British system if they had seen the way polling was looking in their country.
And having institutional patriotism in America can actually be a benefit and free members from party voting slightly. Because if members have been in office for a long time and they have sort of a safe seat for themselves, they're generally allowed a little bit more leeway by their voters to vote what they see best for their constituencies as opposed to just voting in party lines, as is typically the case in Britain.
I would also note comparing the Senate and the House. In the Senate, because of the system of the constituencies, it's easier to get a little more leeway because you have a wider constituency. Many members of the House have to fear being primaried by someone farther to the left or farther to the right, forcing them more in a certain partisan direction.